Yo, and hello, everybody. Mike here. John Keating to my left. You're right, I guess. When you're it's on my left, you're
Somewhere
right
over there. Yeah, you're over there.
somewhere. Welcome to Hobby Think Tank, everybody. The show where we try to just go through different hobby topics in a unique and hopefully just thought provoking way. This is a show we really encourage comments in the comment section down below because we want to hear your feedback. We are not claiming that we have all the answers on any of these issues, but we darn sure want to discuss them and just have them out there. And today's topic is going to be pretty fun, John. But before we get to that, I don't know if we need to do a whole separate episode on this. What do you do as a collector when you start running out of room? Because I am having mega space issues here. I've got crap everywhere and I don't know what to do.
Well, I got rid of two of my kids, which helped. So I have about 1,000 square feet of space I can take up and slowly move people's stuff out of here. So
Well, you're looking at my space. My wife has
yeah.
threatened me with castration should I decide to let the collection start creeping its way into other parts of the house.
Well, you guys aren't getting any younger. How about you take the master suite down to the first floor, and turn your master suite upstairs into a card room. It's got to be bigger, right?
Well,
How'll that go over?
I didn't give you a full tour of the house when you were here, or at least I don't know if I did, but I don't. My master suite is already downstairs,
Oh,
so
you're screwed, dude.
I could
Yeah.
just take the whole upstairs though,
Yeah.
because my kid, you know,
You should
especially
buy another house in that neighborhood so you can have a she shed right there.
that would I'll just buy my next door neighbor out and just
Exactly. Put a
walk
tunnel.
right over.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. We got that. See that we already solved the problem.
No more discussion needed on that. But today's topic is going to be, we may go over our kind of self-imposed 30-minute time limit that we want to try to keep these videos to, just for the sake of just trying to keep you guys' attention. But this is a really good one. There's a lot here. Over the last few years, as the hobby exploded via pandemic, it has created an environment where you have winners and losers. And we wanted to go through a list of different aspects of the hobby and kind of say, did they win? Did they lose? Good or bad, maybe. So, John, I'll let you start it off and we can just start going through these.
Yeah, I started thinking about this. I've thought about this for a while. One thing you see a lot of content out there that talks about a car that sold for $800,000 in whatever March of 2021 and just sold for 200,000. Where does that $600,000 go? Does it go out of the hobby? Was it people that were temporarily here and now they're not here anymore? So someone took the loss there. And then it led me further on down the line to think about auction houses, for example. And it seems out of all the many tentacles of this hobby, it seems to be the one that can't lose. I mean, you have an IT infrastructure as overhead and stuff like that, but I think if you're working with agents on commission and stuff like that, then it seems like kudos to those who have built out quality auction houses, but it seems like they're the ones that are constantly winning here and not losing. They don't have a product per se, a hard product, so they don't have any inventory. They don't have any risk. So that was the genesis of what I was thinking about with hobby winners and losers. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, let's talk about auction houses because they've certainly been around a long time, well before the pandemic, right? And
Hmm.
so they've been a staple for me in my collection for 12 to 15 years that I've been buying from auction houses. And so it's not like they're new, but I think that they've received a lot more what's the word I want to use? Fame's not the right word, just attention. Ken Golden's kind of out there everywhere. He's on CNBC showing off stuff from the
Hmm.
next Golden auctions, and everybody knows about REA. And I feel like the big auction houses have gotten bigger. It's an area that doesn't feel like there's been a lot of new companies coming into the space.
Right.
And maybe that's because how can you do it's hard to screw it up, you
Think about they didn't Golden got bought by Collectors Universe, right?
yes, they did.
So think what an investment that is. Again, you're not just as long as people can keep on keeping on and bringing in revenue without expenditures and overhead. It's just crazy. Uh,
Yeah,
seems
I mean, that's their risk, right? Is they grow too big, hire too many people, have too much fixed costs. The submissions or the commissions that come to them start decreasing, or the overall value of those cards. You can send in a high end card. That doesn't mean. I mean, we've seen Ken Golden fall on his face predicting the values of cards. Oh, this is
right.
going to go for this, and it ends up going for half or a third or whatever of his grandiose prediction.
Yeah, he's got wisdom. They all have wisdom, obviously, from empirical data, but yeah, the market is always shifting and stuff like that. And it's no different than fantasy football. You know, your fantasy football experts know not that much more than you know. So again, he meaning the auction house carnival barker is just a hype man, I think, for these. Their job is to build up as much attention for whatever's being auctioned as possible, and that's a certain personality it takes to do that. But there's again very little risk involved, and I wonder how you feel and Ty feels and Mark feels about like these are the people you're essentially competing with for chasing cardboard type things, right? These big
Yeah.
collections. Eventually, it filters into the collector's hands after many layers of people taking their percentages. But boy, wouldn't you rather buy a nice find by yourself instead of going through all those layers?
Yeah, I mean, you think just from a collection buying standpoint, when we do that on Chasing Cardboard, we've talked to the owners of the cards about, hey, if you take it to an auction, they're going to take this much cut, this and that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and not that that's a bad thing, but it's a completely different set of eyeball. Not true. Completely different set of eyeballs. But there's a lot fewer people watching auction houses because fewer people can play in that market than say on eBay.
Right.
And so they're just two very different selling platforms. That's the only difference, or that is the big difference. And you have different sets of people. I happen to buy on both. So
Right.
I am that hybrid guy, and there's plenty of us. But at the same time, you're going to get a specific type of buyer in an auction house, and even it varies auction house to auction house. Different auction houses specialize in different things, but it feels like there are 8 to 10 major auction houses that seem to get 95% of the big cards that are going to go and be sold that route.
So on the outside world, I would tell my kids, real estate, real estate, real estate, right? Invest in some sort of real estate. Have
Right.
somebody pay the equity on and rent a house from you, whatnot, all that stuff. I would tell a young hobbyist, build an auction platform because in 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, there's a lot of cards that are going to be on the market, baby boomers and stuff like that. So, it's not just tech, but it's also people stuff. You have to have the right people to negotiate with collectors and their heirs and stuff like that. So,
It,
um,
it
yeah,
seems like there would be high barriers to entry given the established market that exists already.
yeah, for sure.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
the older auction houses can go here. Here's my portfolio of all the cards I've sold over our history. Look how good we are at doing this. You're coming in brand new, going, I've never sold a card, but I promise you, I can give you the best deal. That's a tough sell.
Yeah, but you can work your way back. Like you can if you built some sort of platform, and I didn't mean to get this deep into it, but if you built some sort of platform so that it comes to fruition 5, 10 years down the road, then you know, then you
Yeah.
can, look at CSG, our friends CSG, right? Nobody heard of them in the card game essentially a couple of years ago, but they have the infrastructure. They've been working in other markets, so it's not impossible, but it's beyond something that I would do because I'm not that smart and I don't have much time left. So I'm not going to waste it on bits and bytes. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think you also see, I think Fanatics is going to get into that game, and how they end up doing that to be determined, but they're not going to let that
But
just pass them by and not be a part of their business model.
everybody that's come into the secondary market has tried to capitalize on the secondary market, right? Because the primary market, uh, printing and releasing cards, there's only so many profits in that because if you print too many of them, then it's like inflation, right? So it's always a fight for the secondary market, and we see that more so now than at any other time, I think. And one of the other things I want to talk about, what kind of aligns with auction houses, is the tech end of it, right? The market apps, the recognition apps, the comp apps, all that fun stuff. It's another thing that is really sprouted up over the last couple of years, and it seems like some have gone by the wayside, and some are still there. How do you feel about real time, up to the minute market apps for the card uh, hobby?
I think it's now a necessary evil. Um, by the way, if I was to say auction houses, winners or losers over the last few years, I would call them winners.
Oh, it's a slam dunk for
Yeah.
sure. Sorry about that.
Um, the tech thing, let's just say the comp things, whether it's card ladder or market movers or pick your poison, right? Even
Mhm.
VCP, they won tremendously. However, there's a however with that. I don't think they're all going to be here in 3 or 4 years. I think there was too many. To me, I've always thought this. There's only so many hobby dollars. There's
Mhm.
only so many hobby dollars that can be allocated, whether it's to a platform for technology or buying a card or supplies or you name it. Everything within the hobby ecosystem, there's only so many dollars for that. It's a discretionary thing for most of us. And so it's not like I can just, you know, keep pouring money into it just endlessly. And so you nickel and dime people to death. It's eventually going to catch up with you and they're going to go, all right, of these hobby things, I've got to get rid of one. Which one do I get rid of? And it's probably going to be some of those tech things first.
Yeah, and it's no different than we're just a microcosm of life.
Right.
It's the '90s. There was so much technology, right? And it's not a lot of people fell by the wayside, and it's even before the '90s. The best uh, videotape system was the Betamax system, but it's not the one that survived. So we know things fall off the tree and rot and all that stuff, but we tend to forget that we ourselves are uh, a small finite amount of people, and it's not everybody is going to want to embrace the tech, or not. Will there be enough people to keep multiple of these tech companies surviving, right? Because we are finicky with our money. We like to put as much money into our collections as possible. So as you say, you have to make real world decisions. um, so there's a lot of tech out there. A lot of it has been beneficial, whether it's the market stuff, whether it's recognition stuff, comps, all that fun stuff. But I tend to the freakiest I get is with the databases. I guess I'm a subscriber to Beckett OPG, but that's just to keep myself organized, and that's essentially as techy as I want to get. But I absolutely see the need for it. There will be winners and losers within this sector, but I think most people will say that it was a winner, I guess, for the collector, and that's what that's where I look at it. I don't care about investors if they win or lose, right?
Well, if you think about, is it a winner thing for the hobby? The answer is winner, because when you have all this competition, it breeds innovation, right? It
Hmm.
it inspires people. What can we do different to make ours different? What do we have to do different? You look at a card ladder; they're a winner because they got bought by fanatics. I mean, not fanatics, but Collectors Universe.
Collectors, yeah.
So I think we'll see some that kind of fall away, and some. This is true of everything, though. The cream will rise to the top, and the best platform. I think VCP is going to be around. Good. Now and forever kind of thing. It's been around a long, long time. I think it sticks around for a long, long time. I'm personally a subscriber to that. So
Do you think any of these, like Card Ladder? I looked at it briefly last year. Do you think any of these things, there was a lot of that boom tied to the boom, especially the basketball boom. Is Card Ladder still having an impact on the hobby, um, or did they sell at the right time? Because I don't know of anybody that uses it myself, but that's not to say it's not being used by everybody else.
yeah, and we don't run in those circles of people that would use that platform. But yes, I think there are a lot of people that use it. Yes, I think they kind of lucked into the perfect timing. I don't think that was necessary. I haven't talked to Josh or them to know if it was, yeah, we think this is the beginning of the end. In fact, none of them would have told you that at the time. They're like, oh, we're just getting started. If you really thought that, you would have waited,
Hmm.
right? You know what I mean?
Right.
I think it's like, whoa, this is too much. I don't know what the deal was or whatever, but
Yeah.
at some point we all have a number. I have a number for everything in this room.
Sure.
If they
Yeah.
offered it to me, I would give it to them right now. Well, why would you do that? We all have a number. If you say you don't have a number, you're only lying to yourself, because you do.
Yeah.
I promise. If somebody walked in with a truck large enough with enough $100 bills in it, you would sell everything, as would I,
Yeah.
because I would be stupid not to. And
Yeah. I feel like that particular program or app, that particular app, and others kind of like it, appeal more to the temporary collector that we saw coming in and out. That was, essentially day trading in the hobby. Perhaps those people are still around. Perhaps there's still a use for that. You and I are different kind of collectors than those that use that app. Talking
yeah,
about
Market Movers is essentially the same thing. The Jeff
right.
Wilson
Yeah.
application that does basically the same thing. So
Right.
I would call the overall segment, and I think it's a winner for the hobby. I think you'll see a few of them be individual losers because they end up not being in business because
Right.
the hobby won't sustain that many. But let's move on to the next one so we can keep rolling here.
All right, I'm leading here. Okay, don't step on my toes.
Yes.
Secondary market, as we said, is pretty big deal. It's the only deal, and I've said a million times, if the manufacturers went away, it wouldn't matter. We'd still collect and still have just as good a time. Not we wouldn't have as much stuff to bitch about, but secondary market, I consider the LCSs winners, losers in this whole thing. I know a lot of them were shut down during the pandemic. They seem to be struggling right now as a whole.
Well, it seemed like every week I was hearing about a new card shop being open during 2021. And God, can you really sustain that? Same with shows. Any secondary market outlet is subject to the market in which it is involved in. And, the card market's still strong. It's not hot, raging hot like it was. The card shop owners I talk to, and I've talked to many around the country, most of them are like, business is good, but they're all really smart. They've diversified their revenue sources. They have Pokemon and Magic. They don't just do sports cards. I think if you only do sports cards, you're setting yourself up for riding the wave of that.
Right.
If you diversify your revenue streams, I think that's really smart. Funko Pops, pick it,
A lot of that. Yeah.
have all these things, you don't know what the person walking in the door is necessarily looking for. And so the broader and more diverse product lines you can offer, the more sustainable your business is going to be.
Yeah, I think you coming in on the tail end of stuff. Yeah, everybody wanted to buy cards, but one of the fundamental problems with the new card shops is they're last in line and they're not getting allotments and stuff like that. So they're not competitive on that front, which is unfortunate for them. But that's just the way it is. I think maybe we're a little too heavy on e-commerce when it comes to that stuff, and I'm a advocate of whatever deal Walmart and Target has, just take that away. It won't hurt Walmart or Target's bottom line. But if you take cards out of those stores and just put them everywhere else but there, then I think they have a better chance, at least the LCSs. And people are smarter, right? Everybody's smart. We talked about the tech. Everybody's got the information at their fingertips. So it's got to be tough to be an LCS operator when the guy on the other side of the counter from you has as much information as you do. So yeah,
It's hard to pull one over when I'll go to shops and I'll say, hey, here, I see a card. The last one sold for, you have it for 300. The last one sold for 185. I'll give you that. That's fair. Well, I have overhead and I have this and not my problem. I'm sorry. That's not what these cards are going. And they're usually, not always, stubborn, but you see that it shows. Well, I'm into it for more. You hear a lot of things that are going on right now, and that's just going to be the way of it. You just don't have to buy it. Just wait.
Yeah. I think it's like one of the LCSs I go to, my wife bought me a 55 Bowman mantle. And I've been talking to the guy about that card for a while. And thankfully, most of his customer base is more modern. So it's been there for a while. And the thing went from the 500s a couple months ago and creeped into the mid 300s, right? And he's a guy that looks up every comp. Where I've been in stores like Rob at Burbank will just, this is the price of the card, right? We're not basing it on real time data. It's based on, I guess, moving it out the door and still making a profit. So it's interesting to see that, that price of that mantle drop $200 in the course of maybe 4 or 5 months because of the market and the different way these LCSs do business from each other. So.
Yeah. So I think card shops that have a diverse, like I said, product line that can ride out this lull in the hobby, if there is one that continues, then they're going to be okay. They're going to be winners out of this. The ones that are pretty strict and don't have an online presence and just do, mom and pop kind of store stuff, they're going to struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're going to see a lot of the ones that came in go out just as quickly.
Right. You mentioned shows there. Shows are interesting too, again, affected by the pandemic. Now, wipe away the pandemic, whatever the 1 year of not being able to do shows or whatever it was, and compare it to 2019. What does 2022, 23 look like compared to 2019 as far as card shows?
More still. I think there are still more. And I think we'll see that pattern continue for the at least through this year and probably next year.
Right.
As long as there are dealers willing to set up, they will run card shows because a card show promoter really makes their money on the setup, on dealers buying tables.
Depends on the show, right? DCS is an admission based show. There are some shows that aren't admission based. So,
Right.
you know,
Yeah. Again, if you see people leaving the hobby and fewer dealers and fewer people wanting to sell, that'll make shows less attractive. I think you'll still have the Nationals obviously not going anywhere.
mm-hmm.
I think what Rob's doing in Burbank is going to be sustainable because of his name, his brand, where he is located. There's not a lot of huge shows out there.
Do you think we had anything to do with that?
I know which conversation you're talking about.
Yeah.
I remember specifically bringing it
Yeah.
up to him.
Yeah. I
With
kind of wondered that in the back of my head. Here's a guy who's been in business forever, and I'm not sure whether he had ever wanted to or felt the need to do a show, but it's been brought up over and over again, the void in that market in LA, and bam, sure enough,
not too long after we talked to him about it,
yeah,
here comes a show. And maybe he was using Dallas. We met Rob Veras in Dallas at the Dallas Card Show at a event put on by Dr. Beckett for content creators. It was a fantastic, just kind of sharing of ideas and talking through things. And I think he was there kind of scouting out because Dallas at the time was the hot show.
mm-hmm.
And okay, what are they doing that I like? What, maybe a scouting mission of, trying to feel some things out.
So the National, right? As big or bigger, it's bigger than ever, right?
I think will only grow.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily talking about. It doesn't just need to be the attendance. We get hung up on the attendance, but the hype involved. Like there are people that are. Most people either are going and are jazzed about it, and the other half is not going and they're not jazzed about it. There's very few agnostic people there. Most are the ones that aren't going wish they could be there, which is I think that says a lot, right, about that show.
No doubt, because it's more than just the cards.
Mm-hmm.
It's an experience.
Do you think COVID? We'll talk about, maybe we'll get the content, but do you think COVID is a direct result of people meeting each other on YouTube and all that stuff, and that's why they want to see each other in person now? 2021 must have been a pretty big deal, right, for people that had never met before. So I'm wondering how much the content creation part of that contributed to all that hype, or whether it was just always there anyway.
I think it's a soup with many ingredients that has created that. And certainly content creation has fueled that, but so have other platforms where people can connect in this world, whether it's Instagram, Twitter. I mean, Card Collector Two's trade night at the National started via it was an Instagram thing for a long time. He was huge on it, and he still is gigantic on Instagram. That's where that started, not on
Right.
YouTube. Then you have Facebook groups that are buddy buddies, and they get together. And Net 54 Forum does a get together, and
Mhm.
blowout forums. So there are all kinds of avenues where people make these hobby connections, and the National is a natural, organic, perfect place for all of those things to come together in perfect synergy, to have people make these connections in person. Finally, the COVID had nothing. It was just, wow, we didn't get to do it in 2020. You know, other than that, it's always been that way.
Right. Okay. I'm a new guy, by the way. I was hiding for a couple decades, so it's all new to me.
But does that make sense? Why that would be true? That I mean, there's just it's bigger now. It feels like there's more people consuming hobby content in some fashion.
Mhm.
Again, podcasts, Instagram, you name it. And so, whoa, hey, I'm going to be there. Of course, I'm going to be there. And everybody starts talking about it. It generates excitement on all these different platforms. So it's just become the place to go.
How do you feel about the corporate presence at? I mean, the national. It's always been a thing, but it's really starting to come down into the more regional shows. How do you feel about that? Is that are some of the regional shows starting to burn out? They need to sell floor space, or are they bumping dealers out to make room for the various corporate entities at these shows?
I think you have, as a show promoter, you probably have the steadiness of that revenue stream at your show being an influence in your decision to have them. Why wouldn't you want a company with where the check's not going to bounce, so to speak, and have them pay for the space uh,
Hmm.
to
And they're
be?
going to bring people in, right? In theory, they're going to advertise for you on their various.
Hey, we're going to
Uh,
be at such and such
uh,
grading cards or whatever. Yeah, I think that's a symbiotic relationship that's never going to be separated. I just think you're going to see more and more of that going forward, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to go to the corporate areas. Like, there's nothing that forces you to do that. I don't think it's forcing out dealers that would otherwise want to be there. Or at least I haven't.
well, there's a. I mean, the national. We can absolutely say it is because they limit they sell out their tables, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be at the national. I'm just something like Dallas Card Show where it used to be in the lobby and out on the perimeter of the show. It's on the main floor now inside the room, and uh, yeah, I just it apps, but the national could expand. Could national get rid of all of its corporate sponsors and fill it with tables? They're not going to make as much money, obviously, but they could fill that space with tables easily. People are dying to get in there to sell cards for sure.
Do you think the Nationals revenue is attendance based or dealer based, table based, or a hybrid?
Well, revenue or uh, income, because there's a lot that goes into doing a show at a building like that, either in Atlantic City or Chicago. And my estimation is all that the corporate real estate and the tables and all that fun stuff that probably pays for all of that, the rental of the hall. And that's based on some weird metrics too. How much you pay for a hall depends on how many room nights your gang is going to book in the city and all that fun stuff. So but it's still expensive. The unions, the unloading and the electrical and all that fun stuff. So, I think that if it just to boil it down maybe to a simpler thing like the Philly show, probably the tables pay for all of that stuff and the attendance
The great.
is the gravy plus maybe some marketing, right? Kind of stuff like that. Because you also have the these I don't know, you know this better than I do. Does every autograph signer pay for themselves, do you think?
No, they're all paid
Yeah.
for by the show.
Yeah. No,
But
but I mean, do they, if
yes,
I'm they all pay for
Yeah,
themselves.
because if they're not getting public people to pay to sign, they're signing a certain amount of items that they can
Balls,
then
hats,
package
shirts. Yeah.
into
Okay.
TriStar, blah blah blah. But I
Okay.
would call shows winners, not
Okay.
only, and it's a win for the hobby because more show. I think people have really rediscovered the love of going to shows
Yeah. Yeah.
over the last few years,
It's a good
and
point.
like man, this is awesome. And you know, there's no feeling in the hobby like going to a show. It's different than going to your card shop. It's different than any other hobby experience. A show is unique, and I think people have rediscovered that uniqueness and specialness of it. And so you just, I think shows are. I don't think there will be as many going forward. Long, in the next, or will there be less shows in 3 years than today? Yes, I think. However, there's still winners throughout this because it's helped the hobby rediscover that.
Nobody's losing yet. How about the collectors? Have the collectors won or lost throughout this?
Uh, wow. Depends on what kind of
Prices
collector you are.
prices went up. We all bought high,
Yep,
right?
we lost there. We lost with the collector loses when temporary people enter the hobby. And
Hmm.
I hear the argument all the time, well, hey, there's a lot more money getting into the hobby. And my answer is, I don't care. I don't, that doesn't matter to me at all. If Kevin Durant decides to buy sports cards or, some big, venture capitalist wants to get into sports card or Gary Vee talks about it. Like, dude, shut up, man.
Hmm.
This is my little safe place. Leave me
Right.
alone. Get out of
Right.
my comfort area here. And I've been kind of poo pooing on that. There's nothing I can do about it. So I don't know. It's not really a complaint. It's more, man, I don't want people to ruin the intimateness. I don't know if that's the
Intimacy.
word. Intimacy of the hobby. It feels like a small community, which it is. The more mainstream it goes, the it loses that innocence that we all enjoy.
Well, some people call it progress, but for it's always we're always sensitive when it's a hobby for us, but it's a business for somebody else, and you're essentially elbows to elbows with that person, whether it's in an auction, whether it's at a card show. It can rub you the wrong way. I'm in it. I'm doing something different. I'm trying to build a collection in here. This person is trying to build their portfolio, and their cash. And there's two types of hobbyists. There's the card hobbyists, and there's the ones that are cash hobbyists right now, or that's the way it's been the last couple of years, it seems. And it's two opposing forces. So it's okay to be a little upset at certain people because they're uh, they're heading in a different direction than we are, for sure. But
So
have
if
we?
I had to pick a category, sorry to cut you off. If I
No,
had
no
to pick
worries.
a category, I would say the collector has lost
Yeah.
over the last few years. But you know, I I'm still in the hobby because I think the collector can take the L. I think a
Yep.
collector goes, man, I'm doing this for the next 30 years because I love it. Who cares about the daily ebbs and flows of what's going on and
Right.
who's involved? It doesn't affect my hobby. So why should I really care about it? It only affects my hobby in the fact that I can buy fewer cards because of the higher prices. But is that really the worst thing in the world? Because people say, "Oh, your collection is worth more." Well, that'd be great if I was selling it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I get
yeah,
it.
we win some and we lose some, right?
Right.
We hopefully we win more than we lose on transactions, but we do lose. I don't know if the same could be said for a dealer, because a dealer isn't going to take an L on something typically. We'll do something out of emotion. The dealer won't do that out of emotion.
But
Um,
we need both. Like it's a symbiotic
yeah,
relationship.
for
Unfortunately,
sure.
we need
Yeah.
people that are in this hobby for business reasons to help supply us the things that we want to add as a from a collector perspective. So it, they have to be together. It just you want it to be an equal scale and not off balance where there's more money grubbers than there are, and that does even itself out over time. Believe me.
Well, that goes back to my original point: is where is all this money going on these big losses? Like where did it go? Um, you know,
Well,
The
companies
pe
go out of business, and well, you got to think the guy that bought the Jordan at 800,000 PSA 10 rookie isn't selling it. The next guy that got to buy it at 200,000, that guy that owned that card probably only had $1,000 into it.
Okay.
So it's a degree of victory, not a winner and a loser. The Again, the guy that bought it for 800 grand is still sitting on it. I promise there's no way he turned that around. Now you'll
Right.
see that on some cards, people buying a big card, paying big money, selling it a few months later, and it's the exact same card because it's a one of one, or it's a super rare serial number tracking kind of thing. So
Big
yes, there are some losses being taken, but
biggest winner so far, I think, has to be talk about, selling at the very height is, and
tops.
well, no, the rights for baseball, right? Baseball really stepped in it there, selling their rights to Fanatics at the very apex of hobby hype and the market.
I mean, couldn't you say that about all the players associations all won
I
because
lump them in because one
yeah,
can't do you're going forward. They're not doing this independently of each other, the
right.
leagues and the players associations. But and I should have been more specific about that. But I have it on the paper as the leagues and the unions. Boy, they lucked out there, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, they're definitely the biggest winners. They have a vested interest now, which again, how does that really manifest itself? People can speculate all they want. We don't really know.
We don't
Are
know
the
the deal.
players
Yeah.
going to be more cooperative about signing? Are they going to be more cooperative about, whatever aspect of that? Time will tell. There's no way to know that yet, but they definitely have skin in the game. So, yeah, they definite winners in all of this.
Yeah, we don't know the real deal. We've heard numbers, but I'm sure there's also all sorts of caveats and escalators and stuff like that built into these contracts that
Yep.
you like to throw out the biggest number. It's like when a player signs a $250 million deal, and 3 years later they've walked away with $90 million out of 250 million. Baseball. So we don't know. We don't know, but I think the right time. What a perfect storm for the leagues and the unions, right then and there at the very height of the market, which is rare. You know,
No doubt.
yeah. I guess we could talk about content creators real quick. I list B to C, C to C, and C to B2C, which means it's getting a little nebulous now and ambiguous as to content creators that were just in their basements at one point are now full blown marketeers for some of the bigger companies in the hobby. Um, it's I don't know if anybody consumes straight up business to consumer content at this point. I don't know of any of it out there. I know we're going to have some shows, supposedly one from Golden coming up, but what do you feel? How do you feel about that? I mean, the C to C thing, the customer to customer thing seems to be working pretty good. Or
See, I thought
collector to collector, I
I
should
was thinking
say. Yeah.
collector to collector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Collector to collector is what I meant. Yeah.
Well, I feel like I've got my foot in kind of several of those areas. I mean, chasing cardboard is definitely it's a business,
Hmm.
and we are running it that way. And so it is, you know, a business providing content to collectors, and really our audience is shockingly non-hobbyist. People that don't,
Really?
yes,
Wow. That's
we get
interesting.
so many comments about I'm not even into cards, but this is an awesome show because it's telling stories, and it's the cards are the thing that kind of drive the story, but the reality is it's more of meant to be entertainment, which quite frankly is the part of the show that I don't like, which is weird.
Yeah.
Um,
But
I
you
want
guys built this thing from the ground up as collectors. You built this
We
thing.
did.
There's
Uh,
other there's other, I guess there's people coming in and sliding over on the bench with established content creators that is very interesting, like auction watches and stuff like that. I'm trying to figure out Well, I know what that is. That's strictly trying to pump up auctions, and I guess PWCC that's one of their business approaches. Kind of nab these content creators and turn them into vessels for them to watch their auctions live and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say no to money, right? And especially if you're a content creator, what's great about the situation that Ty and I find ourselves in is if we find a person that wants to sponsor us, and I'm not talking about chasing cardboard. I'm talking about just bench clear media that you're watching this on or baseball collector. Like I like a dollar as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to not buy cards next week because of it. For
Yeah,
some of these people, it's a significant addition, either via YouTube revenue, sponsorship, you name it. It's a significant increase in their hobby budget, which they're going, look, I'll beg, borrow, steal so that I can buy more cards. And I don't blame them for that at all. I mean, it's not a,
but
I,
aren't you adopting the message of the person you're the messenger for at that point, or you're adopting everything about that company? And how can you trust that company? Uh, and then say there's 12 of them that sponsor you. Some of our colleagues, it's like a NASCAR.
right.
There's so many stickers on the hood. Like, how can you trust all of these? Because the hobby, it's just there's so many pitfalls, right?
I love that analogy of the NASCAR.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, each content creator has to make their own decision. And to me, it's always about like, look, if VCP wanted to sponsor my baseball collector, great. I already use their product and love it. It'd be an
hmm
easy thing for me to talk about that. And if I had to talk about VCP every other video or whatever, that wouldn't be a big deal. The I know on my podcast, I just turned on after 2 years. I finally turned on ads, and the only ad I'm running is, "Hey, if you want to do a podcast, go use Anchor."
yeah,
That's it.
right.
Which I'm like, I've used Anchor for 2 years. I think it's a great platform if you want to do a podcast. So of course I'm going to endorse it, and they're going to pay me to endorse it. Great, because I
Right.
would do that anyway.
Yeah.
If someone asks me, which they do from time to time, hey, what platform do you use? Well,
Right. Yeah. Well, that's
so
right, though. That's yeah. I think as amateurs at all this, this is a side hustle for everybody. I think that's the right way to go about it. Have your build your own cases for why you should, and I think be cynical of otherwise, because there's so many fly by night operations, especially the breakers and stuff like that. No offense to them, but there's so much out there that you don't know everybody's on the up and up.
well, it's 10 to 1 on opportunities presented either to bench clear, chasing cardboard, or me as baseball collector. 10 to 1 of things we say no to what we say yes to, and that's just the line in the sand we've decided to draw. Everybody's
Yeah.
going to have their own line.
hmm
And again, no fault to them if they want to, hawk whatever
Right.
to be able to, hey, man, I'm using this. I just want people to be transparent about it. Like, hey, if SGC is, I'm wearing a PSA hat right now, but if SGC is a sponsor, which, they have been in the past of this network, um, and but they came to us and said, look, just keep doing what you're doing. We just want to support you.
Right.
That's something. And who doesn't? I mean, SGC is great.
Yeah, but who wins there, right? Is the consumer of the content winning? Maybe we don't need to draw a winner there, but or a loser, but who wins in that situation? Obviously, the businesses win, right? Because they're getting in people's ears.
Yep.
Uh,
And you win because you get to buy more cards because you have additional dollars in your pocket to do so. And I think overall, the hobby is better because of more content creation. You get
mhm,
to choose, you can watch whatever you want, Mr. Viewer. The fact that you're watching this show means you find some value in it. If there's other places you find value in, whether it's entertainment, education, or inspiration, go for it. And I think it's like you can have, like right now, we have so many TV choices. When we were kids, we had four,
mhm,
right? Now there's 300. Is that better or worse? It's no
right,
question it's better to have more choices. The problem is you're just going to be diluted, and you just have to accept that dilution is part of it, but it allows people to specialize. It allows people to find their people, if that makes sense. Like man, I can find a guy that collects 90% of what I collect. And there's somebody out there that's putting out content that you can connect with.
Right.
And so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think overall the consumer of content is a winner because, as you say, there's so much, and it can hone in. It's a little intimidating at first, but eventually you find your tribe. You have to weed through some of the other stuff, but eventually you find your people and your tribe and the common ground.
It's funny. I'll tell you, again, you've only been in the content world for 2 or 3 years, right?
Yeah, a year and a half or something. Almost
So
2 years. Yeah.
you know who Jab's family is, right? They've been around a long time. Eric Jab's family, huge channel, has tons of subscribers. What I tend to see in this life cycle of a content consumer is people will find Jabs, because if you type in baseball cards, one of his videos is going to come up, or Packer cards 87. You're like, oh, this is cool. I didn't know there were videos about sports cards. And then you somehow get into an algorithm where you find a collector, a real person that man, I want to find a vintage guy. And you kind of start going down the rabbit hole. A lot of people go, yeah, I've graduated from Jabs. That was content
Right.
in
Starter content.
my starter content in my
Uh,
infancy of my
yeah.
YouTube consumption. And now I've moved on to the filet mignon, like Baseball Collector and that 70s card show that we do.
Nice try.
Right? Did you like
Yeah,
that?
that
Come on.
was you're shameless, and I'm shameless for allowing you to say that, I guess. So,
But
yeah,
people will find their thing. Like you said, they'll
right,
find their tribe. They may start in the giant coliseum of,
right. We all know where they might start in Atlanta, Georgia, but eventually they'll make their way out, or they'll stay in Atlanta, Georgia, with Atlanta, Georgia content creators.
yep.
So yeah, that's a fun thing that I think has grown over the last couple of years, and everybody wins there. I am a little leery of the business aspect of it because there's everybody's trying to poke the doll and find out where money will come out, and it's easy to be sucked into that. It's to be wooed by a company that has a lot of clout in the hobby and stuff like that, and then there's ones that have a lot of clout in the hobby and don't participate at all in that end of things. And I guess we could talk about grading for about 3 minutes, but no more. Obviously, what do you think about grading, winning, losing in this thing? You and I talked about it briefly earlier today.
Grading overall has been a winner. And it's no question that people, especially all the newbies coming in, they want their cards graded. I think that Raw has seen a resurgence in the last 8 to 12 months. People are going, do I really need everything graded? Maybe not. But the reality is, I still think grading is as in highest demand, and will stay that way. You could argue, well, if it was, why are they lowering prices? Um, they're trying to find an equilibrium. That's where the
Right.
hobby is.
Yeah, but what the formula factory shut down last year. The baby formula factory shut down. How I asked you earlier today, and I gave you some time to think about it. When PSA shut down, all these grading companies shut down. I know they had a backlog, but was that had to have been bad for revenue? I would think if you don't have any, essentially you're front loaded on your revenue, and then you have to have months to clean it out
Not
without any.
PSA.
Yeah,
Remember, they don't charge until their order's done.
that's a good point there.
So they had a backlog of
They
they
were
had
at, yeah,
giant
and they
stored
had it.
revenue.
Yeah, they had motivation to get through that because they don't get paid until.
Right.
And then Beckett, what happened to Beckett? Beckett obviously, I think, is a loser in this whole thing. If you're getting
Yeah.
into the minutia of grading companies, it's. Do you think PSA has stayed the same? Obviously, they're the king. Nobody's going to doubt that they're the king. But has their clout increased? Are they about the same as they were, or you think they're feeling some of these darlings, the underdogs? You think they're feeling the heat there?
No, I don't think they're feeling the heat at all. I don't think they give a rat's butt about what
So why
SGC.
are they probing with all these asinine uh, levels of submissions? Buck 99, 199 or lower. Join the club. Has to be from this year or further back. And why not just do a flat rate like If you have 20 cards, it's $20. If you have 50 cards, it's $18. Why not just make it simple?
Yeah. Well, why doesn't the federal government make taxes simple?
Well,
It's bureaucracy, right? The bigger they are, it feels like the bigger something is, as the federal government gets bigger and we make more agencies and we spend more money, it just seems like, wait, aren't we just overlapping and doing silly stuff? I could make
listen, what's the most people use what kind of computers, right? Microsoft, IBM, or micro PCs, right?
PCs and or iPad or iMacs or whatever.
People, majority of people, companies, people or companies too, governments all use PCs, right?
Right.
So the biggest company market share or market wise or cap is Mac, right? They just don't care. They do their own thing and they don't react to uh, the way other people are doing things. It seems like PSA is trying to react, constantly react, and SGC is just doing their thing. I'm not saying SGC is bringing in more revenue than PSA, but those are companies you need to admire a little bit more instead of constantly, retooling. What are we going to do?
I
Let's.
would love to see financials. Both companies are private, so you
Mhm.
can't, but I bet you SGC's margins are better.
Yeah, for sure. And they're not. I'm not saying you have to be happy with your lot in life, but they're on their own road, and they're not looking for the on ramp, right? They're just going to get there on their own. Maybe it's a little slower or whatever, but quite an operation. And I imagine CSG is doing the same. CSG's got to play a little bit more catch up, obviously, but um, I don't know. I think PSA, for as much as it dominates the hobby, I think there's still a lot of uh, pimples on its rear end, and it's for many people it's not as great as it seems, and
And
you know
yet you would still call them a winner through this, right?
would you?
Yeah.
I'm picking nits, but I think that their reputation hasn't gotten any better. It seems. Um,
But SGC is no doubt a big winner.
yeah,
They've
and
won
CSG, right?
at CSG. BGS is a loser.
Yep, for
Uh,
sure.
and I think HGA and pretty much every other grading company
Right.
uh, is losers. Maybe not true. They're probably still grading more cards than they used to, but they're just not going to ever catch up. The
Right.
gap
So,
is too wide.
so that's a wash then, I think, right? If CSG and SGC are for sure winners, Beckett's for sure a loser. Here we are. It's like we're grading a card here. You're giving
Right.
9.5, 9.5. Give a 7 for Beckett. I think PSA is kind of level. So yeah, I guess you're right. I don't know. I'll call it a 50-50 shot. Maybe that's a draw. Maybe it's a draw for
Probably the
graders.
fairest way to
Yeah.
assess that. I agree.
And we didn't even think about that. We just came up with that in the last couple minutes. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Man, this is the longest hobby think tank we've ever had.
wait, I still have 6 more pages to
Oh
go
my
through
goodness.
here. All right, get us out of here, man.
Well, thanks, guys, everybody, for watching. We appreciate it. Let us know what you think down below. Let us know where you're at on these issues. We covered a lot of different things, but we appreciate you sticking with us through this episode. And John and I certainly enjoy talking about this stuff with each other. So, John, thanks. And we'll catch you guys soon. Keep collecting.